In this final video, I want to teach you how to interpret a confidence interval. And so remember the purpose of a confidence interval, and it's used to estimate some unknown parameter based off of data. So the interval itself is constructed from data, which means that a sample that I gather can be totally different from a sample that you gather. And because of that, our estimates will either reflect that or they won't. So we can have very different estimates based off of that. So when we go to interpret it, the meaning of a confidence interval, we're always going to reference the sample. We're always going to reference the sample first, which means that based off my sample or based off your sample. And we're going to use that to infer about the population. So you always want to talk about interpretations that start off that have something that talks about the sample and the population in it. All right. And so when we go to interpret, to identify correct interpretation, we're generally looking for that starting with the sample and trying to infer back to the population. And here's an example of a multiple choice question that you may be asked on a test. It says, identify which is the correct interpretation of the confidence interval for the given situation. And it says a biologist has taken a random sample of a specific type of fish from a large lake. A 95% confidence interval was calculated to be 5.6 to 8 pounds. Which of these is the correct interpretation of that confidence interval? A says 95% of all fish in the lake weigh between 5.6 and 8 pounds. You're looking for two things again. You're looking for it to talk about the sample and to infer from that sample about the population. So here we see the key word, which is all. And all means it's a population. So they're telling me that all the fish or the population of fish weigh between this. What am I missing from this? Two things again, samples and populations. Did I ever reference the sample here? No, I've only spoken about the population. So here, A is wrong because there is no sample to infer from. So we're not speaking about the sample at all. We still went straight to the population. Look at B. In repeated sampling, notice there, I'm talking about sampling. 95% of the sample means, again, another sample, will fall within 5.6 and 8 pounds. Well, what's wrong with that? In this particular problem, we've never talked about the population. So here, there's no mention of the population. So B is also wrong. Well, let's look at C. In repeated sampling, so there goes the sample part again. 95% of the time, the true population, and now we mentioned the population, mean a fish will fall between 5.6 and 8 pounds. This talks about a sample and it talks about a population. So we'll keep this answer as being correct because it talks about the two things we're looking for. Let's go ahead and check D. We are 95% confident that all the fish weights will fall between 5.6 and 8 pounds. Well, I see the word all again. And remember, that word all means population. So I know I'm talking about a population, but what am I missing again? I'm missing the sample. So no, this is not correct. It does not mention the sample. So the only correct answer here is going to be C. And that's because C talks about both sampling and the population. So when you interpret the confidence interval, you're going to interpret it with respect to the sample and the population.